Good evening, Jam Talkers. It's such a delight to be with you for yet another show where we can discuss some interesting and somewhat controversial topic. And of course, that has been the culture of this wonderful platform created for us to share our thoughts and ideas by Mr. Loyal Ellis. Thank you again, Mr. Ellis, for this platform that you were very instrumental in creating for us to come and have dialogue online and discuss some budding topics that will, of course, pique interest and get some discussion going on different matters that affect us socially and politically and economically at the end of the day. And of course, today's topic is indeed a controversial one, stemming over 2 decades globally, and of recent times have been having major discussion going on this topic of electoral gender quota and how practical, relevant, and effective it is in correcting some of our imbalance or gender bias in our political arena as it relates to the disparity that exists in the relationship to men and women in political representation. So we will get into that discussion in a few minutes, but of course, I am an insurance advisor and I always use an opportunity to market and sell my products and my company. So I will remind my listener that I am Andrea Walters, financial advisor with Guardian Life, and I'm also the political representative for the Jamaica Labour Party in Eastern Westmoreland, and have varied interests, of course, and this is a new one, and I'm really enjoying this one and looking forward for a long-lasting, I don't know if it's a career, but activity in this online talk show program here, Jam Talk Online. So I will just briefly, last week we discussed some of our major insurance products. I will go back to discussing some of the real practical ones that will solve some of our financial problems. And a lot of persons think that, I don't have money, so I can't afford an insurance policy. But it's really when you don't have money that you need somebody to assume the risk that we all are exposed to, and also to take on the liabilities that if you are the main breadwinner in a family, those liabilities or those financial obligations will be left on your family. And of course, I don't think any of us will die peacefully if we know that because of our irresponsible approach to financial planning, estate planning, and how we protect our assets and, our children's interests, I don't think any of us will be resting in peace knowing that we would have left all that burden or would have denied our children or a child from fulfilling whatever ambition he or she had before we pass on. So I will use a few minutes again to discuss some of our major products at Guardian Life and encourage persons to call me and have a discussion, even if you're not immediately ready to purchase a product, but to know more about it and to see how it can solve or give you that peace of mind to know that whatever asset you have now, whatever wealth you have now will be protected, and your family interest will be protected, your estate, your whatever health, critical illness that we are all exposed to at all ages, really. Critical illness is no respect of age any longer. So we want to know that should a critical illness comes up on us unexpectedly, as they usually do, that we have somebody to share that financial burden with for a small premium, of course. So I will again go back to discussing our ultimate provider, and as the name suggests, it does provide ultimate protection against critical illnesses and some major surgery that we may have to do to save our lives should we be diagnosed with one of these critical illnesses. It covers 23 critical illnesses. This plan carries two options. If you take option 1, you get a death benefit. You get your 23 critical illnesses, inclusive of major organ transplant and structural surgery. And also you get an automatic investment feature starting at a minimum of $1,000, but you have the freedom to increase that amount or to make ad hoc payments to top up or put in lump sum on your investment as you see fit. If you take option 2, you are only covered against the 23 illnesses and structural surgery and or major organ transplant, plus you still have the investment. This is a great product, is what I call that comprehensive coverage, where it gives you that peace of mind. Should you die, your spouse and your children, or whoever your beneficiary is, that their financial interests will be protected. Should you get one of these critical illnesses, Alzheimer's, angioplasty, benign brain tumor, blindness, cancer, coma, coronary artery disease requiring surgery, should you become deaf or blind, should you have a heart attack, should you have kidney failure. A lot of persons are presently suffering from kidney failure and not having the money to go on the dialysis in a private hospital, because sometimes the wait can be very lengthy in the public hospitals because there are just a few dialysis machines on the island. So having the fund to go into a private institution at your free will can make a difference in how long you will live with a dysfunctional kidney. Major burns, loss of speech, whether naturally from natural causes or from accidental causes. Should you have a major organ failure requiring transplant or surgery, occupational HIV. We have a lot of persons working in the medical industry that, they can be at risk for occupational HIV based on the nature of their job. Paralysis, we can become paralyzed from natural illnesses or from accidental incidents. Parkinson disease, that's another common one, especially amongst our older folks. And of course the strokes, some being hypertensive, because we living in a fast world and everything is so stressful. So it is said that a lot of us have had many minor strokes throughout our lifetime and we don't even know it. So the ultimate provider is a great product. It gives you that comprehensive coverage, and I'm really encouraging persons. The cost for the plan is very affordable. Come and have some discussion to see how that will fit in your financial planning. Let us develop a culture, and I'll be saying this almost every week like a stock recorder. Let us develop a culture where we do proper financial planning and don't just leave everything to chances. Oh, if I die, life goes on, my family will rough it out, they'll find a way, I will get buried. And some people say, boy, if you don't want to bury me, you can do whatever you please, I'm already dead. but we have to, like other countries, we say we want to have enjoy first world status. We have to start think like the people, like citizens really of a first world country. The Guardian Assure is another great product. It is similar to the Ultimate Provider, but it does not give that extensive coverage on the critical illnesses that goes up to 23, inclusive of major organ transplant coverage for that, and structural surgery. But the critical illnesses on this Guardian Assure, and this is ideal for young professional, young people. The premium, the actuary really, when they were designing this plan, they had that group of people in mind, young persons just leaving university, just starting out their career, maybe just have an addition to the family, a first child, just getting married, working towards having their own home, and really starting that life of their own. So this was designed for young professional and young people in mind. The premium is extremely affordable, and it carries the death benefit. It carries accidental death and disability or dismemberment, and also it has the critical illnesses covered: blindness, coma, cancer, heart attack, major burns, kidney failure, paralysis, stroke, and it does give good returns on premium. I sold this to many young persons I tend to target with this policy, and she was very much surprised when she called to check up on how much she had in investment, and I told her. And of course, you can start with a minimum of $500 in investment on that and watch it grow. In most financial institutions, you have to maintain a minimum balance of $5,000 to keep your account active. And if you can, out of a premium, $500 minimum goes into your investment, and after a few months you can call and here you have 30-something thousand on your policy. I would say that's a great investment. So I'm encouraging persons, young professional, young people. This plan, the Guardian Assure, was designed for you in mind. Give me a call and let us discuss it further. Last week I didn't get to discuss the 3 new products that Guardian launched late last year. The Guardian Investor Plus. It is similar to the Guardian Investor. The only difference is that based on the discretion of the underwriter for the Guardian Investor, they may ask you for a medical, but on the Guardian Investor Plus, it does not require you to do a medical. It gives great coverage and also very good returns on investment. And the main purpose that the actuary had in mind when they designed this plan is that it can be very instrumental in assisting to raise funds to educate your children, to make a deposit on a home, to get a lump sum payment to put towards your home, or you want to make a lump sum payment on your mortgage, whether towards the principal or the interest, so you can, after over a period of time, whatever interest you would have generated on this plan, you can come in and get some money off it to clear part of your principal or interest. You can also get a lump sum towards your retirement plan, and also you can use it in case of death or having any final expenses left by a loved one. You can come in and get some money off the policy to deal with your final expenses. So this plan is a great investment plan, and of course, as I said, it doesn't ask for a medical. So persons, and it does give good coverage on investments. So persons who are predisposed or have pre-existing health condition, you can get a good coverage that carries great investment feature in the Guardian Investor Plus. The Flexi Term Special is another one of our really extraordinary product here at Guardian Life, and what makes it so special is that it is the only policy here. I think on the island we're the only company that gives a premium holiday and gives back a return of premium on your policy, because that is a major concern for a lot of persons who they use it as an argument for not wanting to purchase life insurance, because they tend to think that they get nothing back. But this is a great plan for persons who have that concern. The Guardian FlexiTerm Special, it gives you, after paying on the policy, it's a term policy ranging from 10 years to 30 years. So you can get a 10-year term plan, a 15-year term plan, 20, 25, or 30 years. After paying your premium for 3 years, you may come into Guardian for whatever reason. Maybe you just want to, get a break from paying insurance and divert that money to clearing another loan or to take a vacation, or whatever your reason will be. You can come into Guardian and, tell them that you would like a premium holiday or a break from the policy, and Guardian will give you at least 6 months of keeping you on cover without you paying a premium. Also, what is amazing about this plan is that after the first 10 years of paying your premium, you get back 20% of all the premiums you would have paid up to that time. 15 years of paying, you get back 25% of your premium paid. 20 years of paying, you get back 30% of the premium paid. 25 years of paying, you get back 35%, and 30 years of paying your premium, you get back 40% of your premiums paid. So this is really an extraordinary product, and it is so practical. Some persons may, they basically have their lives planned out. They are financially stable. They just have certain risk or liabilities that they want covered. They may have a mortgage for 10 years that they want to ensure that something is in place should, in case anything happens, that this burden won't be left on family members. Or they may have a child that is still going to university, or will be going to university for the next 4 or 5 years, and they just want to know that, for the next 10 years or so, until that child becomes qualified and can stand on his or her own feet, that they have something in place. God forbid something happens to one of the parent or both. So these term policies really serve their purpose. You just have to, see where you're at in your personal lives, and to see what need you have to be filled, and then we can have this discussion and come to an agreement of which one of these products will be more ideal for you. And some additional benefits to this term, this flexi term, other than giving the premium holiday and the return of premium, you also get accidental death and permanent disability benefit. You get disablement benefit. You get total disability waiver of premium benefit that will you'll have to pay an additional fee though, but it's very, very, very small for these additional benefits. And of course you get the death benefit, the coverage for which you are taking out the insurance for. So those are some great products. We have the Lifesaver again. It is very, very special because it gives great coverage without requiring the prospect to do a medical. You can get critical illness coverage on it, you get investment on it, and you get great life insurance or death benefit, as we call it, on this plan. And the premium is very, very affordable. And the great thing about this plan is that you could have a pre-existing health condition. Guardian will not ask you to produce a medical to get this plan. So, as some persons usually think that having a pre-existing condition that exempt them from getting life insurance, that is not so. You just need to have dialogue with the right person who can guide you accordingly and find the most appropriate product for you to fill whatever need, insurance, critical illness, or financial need that you may have. And just a reminder, that is when you don't have money, you really need insurance, because your exposure don't go away with you not having money, and is really when you don't have any assets to liquidate, no money in the bank that you need to ensure that you're paying a small premium somewhere for when any of these eventualities may arise, that you have somebody to call upon to say, hey, this has happened, I've been paying my premium, I have a policy in force, how can I cash in on my policy for one reason or another. So stop persons out there who always tell that agent, I cannot afford it. Look at how you're budgeting for your current how you're spending your present disposable income, and see how practical you are in that regard, and to see what you can cut or curb to take out an insurance policy, no matter how small, for starter. And then as your life evolves financially, you can always upgrade. But don't let you, sometimes we think, but when you sit with an advisor, you see that you really can afford. You just need to get the discussion started. So here I'll be having this discussion every Friday. I'm available. You can give me a call, 550-3294, or you can email me at andrea.walters@myguardiangroup.com. So I'm looking out for the calls or the emails. Again, contact information, 550-3294, or email me at andrea.walters@myguardiangroup.com. All right, so that is that on insurance, and the reminder that we have to be prudent in our financial planning, and we have to develop a culture where we start to get insurance savvy. We say we want to live first world lifestyle. We have to start thinking the way first world people think. All right. So getting back to the meat of the matter, the topic on hand, electoral gender quotas. Will it correct or solve our gender imbalance in Parliament? Of course, I have my personal view on the matter, but today I will argue from a neutral and objective perspective, and paying keen attention to all sides of the argument. Some persons see the implementation of legislated or voluntary quota system as a means of fixing our gender bias or imbalance in political representation. Others see it as impractical or ineffective in correcting this problem, as it is thought that the implementation of this practice will in itself create similar problems to which gender quotas were designed to correct. So, of course, I have my personal view, and I will share, not imposing my personal views on my listeners, just, for discussion, but I will look at this topic broadly. We will also discuss the cause for gender quota here in Jamaica, and also will discuss some factors that may over time resulted in the disparity in men to women in the political arena. So that should be some factors that over time could have resulted in this disparity, where we see a disparity of maybe 1 to 5 of men to women in the political arena. An increasing number of countries are currently introducing various types of gender quotas, some for political reasons and some are done with an aim to maintain some form of social equity in society. And yes, when we look in the offices and corporate spaces, we see a larger number of women occupying the top positions and the spaces, and a larger amount of the spaces. And in recent times, you would see that when you go into universities, you will see far more women to men. You will see even in the entrepreneurial or small business arena, you'll see a lot of women going out there trying to start up a business for themselves. However, for some strange reason, the same amount of increase of women in politics is just not seen in society, both regionally and globally. And it is not that women have not been showing interest in politics over the decades. And it is not that women have not enjoyed successful career in politics over the decades. But there still exists that blatant and obvious and evident disparity in the amount of men that occupy the political arena to the amount of women we see emerging politically. And this, as the men in politics have enjoyed this prominence really throughout history. And we'll just make note as we go along. I just want to make mention of some great female political leaders, both regionally and globally. We would have seen Golda Meir, Israel's fourth Prime Minister, elected March 17, 1969, after serving as Minister of Labour and Foreign Minister. And she's, of course, Israel's first Prime Minister, and the third woman, and the world's third woman, that is, to hold such an office. And of course, she was also described as the Iron Lady, similarly to our great and dear Margaret Thatcher, our former British Prime Minister. We would have seen Dilma Rousseff, the 36th President of Brazil, and the first woman to hold this office. And she was, of course, previous Chief of Staff to President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from 2005 to 2010. We would have seen Joanna Sigurdardóttir, Prime Minister of Ireland, and she also served as the Minister of Social Affairs and Security. And she's Iceland's first Prime Minister, also, and the world's first openly lesbian head of government. And in 2009, Forbes magazine listed her amongst the 100 most powerful women in the world. We have Yingluck Shinawatra. She's the 28th and current Prime Minister of Thailand, and she's Thailand's first female Prime Minister and the youngest PM in Thailand in over 60 years. We have Sonia Gandhi, President of the Indian National Congress. She leads the ruling political party of the world's second largest population. And of course, she's widow of former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi. And in 2013, Forbes listed her at number 21 amongst the most powerful people, not just women, 21st amongst the world's most powerful people, and the 9th most powerful woman in the world. We have Angela Merkel. She's described as the world's most powerful woman and is the backbone of the 27-member European Union. And of course, she carries the fate of the euro on her shoulders. She has been the Chancellor of Germany since 2005, and she's the leader of the Christian Democratic Union since 2000. And of course, she's the first woman to hold these offices, and she's ranked as the world's second most powerful person in the world by Forbes magazine in 2002. We're seeing some great women here who have occupied key places at the top table where critical decision making takes place that will affect any nation socially or economically. So when we're looking at this quota system, we're not saying women have not been there. We're really looking at the amount over time. Why aren't we seeing more women occupying these spaces? I will continue to name a few other great women. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, 24th and current president of Liberia. She's one of the founders of the National Patriotic Front of Liberia, and she's the first female head of state in Africa. And of course, she was awarded the 2011 Peace Nobel Prize for her contribution to nonviolent struggle for the safety of women and for women's right to full participation in peace-building work. We have Isabel Martinez de Perón, former president of Argentina, and of course she is the third wife of former President Juan Perón. She served as his vice president, and of course she's the first non-royal female head of state and head of government in the Western Hemisphere in modern times. And of course, when we talk about powerful women, we really have to give respect to these women who went out there and told themselves that amidst the gender bias, amidst the discrimination, amidst the marginalization, they thought that they could do it, and they have done great jobs. We have Park Geun-hye, first female in South Korean politics who was elected as president. Hye is also, the first, hope I'm pronouncing this person's name correctly, was the first woman head of state in modern history of Northeast Asia, and she's generally considered to be one of the most influential politicians of all times, most powerful personalities, of course, in the history of South Korea. We have Benazir Bhutto, first Muslim, and this is interesting because in a Muslim society we tend to think that women really have no voice nationally, and they really are subjected, and they really have served no importance in places of dominance. But we see here where Benazir Bhutto was the first Muslim who came forward and became Prime Minister of Pakistan, not once, but for 2 terms. And of course, she's famous for her leadership style, her concern for people, and her sophistication. And of course, she's the eldest daughter of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who served as Prime Minister of Pakistan in 1971. However, she was assassinated in December 2007 and was later named one of 7 winners of the United Nations Prize in the field of human rights. And of course, we cannot leave out our notable female leaders here in the region, in the Caribbean. Dame Mary Eugenia Charles, Prime Minister, longest serving Prime Minister of Dominica, 1980 to 1995. First female to date, only female Prime Minister, Dame Mary Eugenia Charles. Of course, we have Claudette Worley, Haitian Prime Minister from 1995 to 1996. We have Janet Jagan, President of Guyana, 1997 to 1999. We have Michelle Pierre-Louise, Prime Minister of Haiti, 2008 to 2009. Kamla Persa Biseso, PM of Trinidad and Tobago, 2010 to 15. We have Pamela Gordon, Premier Bermuda, 1997 to 1998. Jennifer Smith, Premier Bermuda, 1998 to 2003. Paula Cox, Premier of Bermuda, 2010 to 2012. And we're seeing here where it is basically a trend for Bermuda to elect females for their premier. We have seen that consistency where we have 3 women. Most countries you see only 1 woman over a period of time being elected as Prime Minister, President, or Premier. But we have seen here where for a period from 1997 to 2000, there's a gap from 2003 to 2010. But we have seen in periods 97 to 98, 98 to 2003, 2010 to 2012, where we have females occupying that top job for Bermuda as their premier. We have Eartha Pascal Trulot, President of Haiti, 1990 to 1991. And there's this trend where the presidents of Haiti, the female presidents of Haiti, we see them mostly doing a year or just 1 term. We have persons, we cannot leave out our dear Prime Minister here, Mrs. Portia Simpson Miller. Of course, we have Portia Simpson Miller, our first female Prime Minister here in Jamaica. And, we can be on any side of the political platform, but where respect is due, respect must be given. And as a woman, we have to give respect for the work and the endurance that Mrs. Portia Miller Simpson have really carried throughout her political life to becoming it. I don't think it would have been an easy road, because I'm in politics and I know that our culture here is still patriarchal, and for a woman to really come to any prominence in our Jamaican political arena. It is really not an easy road, and it can be quite challenging. It can be quite stressful. It can be quite frustrating, and it really would have taken a lot of endurance, patience, determination, and strength, a lot of inner strength and other skill set, natural and innate to Mrs. Miller. We may not like the way she communicates. We may not have given her A plus for her leadership style or level of leadership, but where respect is due, respect must be given, and we have to respect the fact that this woman from humble beginning managed to have elevated herself and become Jamaica's first female prime minister twice, in 2007 when the leadership was entrusted on her, and again in 2011 where she got her own mandate and was elected as Prime Minister of Jamaica and served from 2011 to the 25th of February, and she's presently February this year, and she's presently the lead of the opposition for the People's National Party, and really have given a lot of years to governance and our parliamentary processes. She has had responsibility as cabinet minister with portfolio for labour and social security, tourism, local government, community development, sports, all at different times. So Mrs. Portia Miller, we're not on the same side, but we're both females, and I have to give respect for your endurance and your fight and determination and that inner strength that took you to the level that you have enjoyed the successes in your political career that you have enjoyed over the years. We have Madam Rose Leon, who is also our first Jamaican woman to have become a government minister, and the only Jamaican to have served in both a JLP and PNP cabinet. Well, not the only, I guess the only woman. Well, not the only, because I remember Mr. Samuda, he went for a little while and he came back home. But Miss Rose Leon joined the JLP in 1944 and was elected chairman of the party in 1948, and as a woman to have been elected chairman of a political party, that in itself would have been an accomplishment way back when for her as a female. She won her first election in 1949, winning the Western St. Andrews seat, and she held that for 8 years. Then, for some reason, she left the JLP in 1960 and ran independent, but she was unsuccessful in that regard. In our political culture here in Jamaica, it's kind of difficult to garner any success as an independent candidate. So I guess that propelled her to joining the People's National Party in 1967. And of course, she won a local government election seat in 1969. And she has served as chairman of the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation Roads and Works Committee. And she was also the deputy mayor of the KCC in 1971 before she retired in 1980. And of course, I love this lady. I know that Jamaica and Trinidad, there are some, kind of tension going on right now where, Trinidad is said to really not being civil, courteous, cordial to our visitors there, and they're really treating them in some regard less than at acceptable standard. We know as a sovereign state that you have to protect your border, and the last call is really left with your immigration personnel as to who you let in your country. But the concerns now really doesn't have anything to do with protecting your border. It's just, I guess, how you go about doing it. And I really have respect for persons who put country first. I'm a nationalist at heart. I'm a patriot at heart. And I think we are supposed to do whatever it takes to protect our country and do whatever it takes to ensure that it has social and economic viability. And I'm not bashing Trinidad for ensuring that they're protecting their country's interest, but as old people will say, it's not what you do most times that create a problem, is how you go about doing it. But I'm hoping that that issue will be resolved amicable soon. But I have, going back to discussing powerful women in the region in politics, I must say that I have heights of respect for Kamla Prasad Bisesa, who in 1987, she entered her political life and served as an alderman for St. Patrick County Council from 1987 to 1991. And of course, she represents the United National Congress. She has been a member of Parliament for Siparia since 1995. And of course, she took oath of allegiance at the sitting of the Senate on November 1, 1994. So she really has been enjoying a number of years in a very successful political life. She served as Attorney General, Minister of Legal Affairs, Minister of Education, and she was appointed leader of the opposition, her party, United National Congress, then when it was in opposition. And of course, she subsequently went on to winning the election, and of course becoming the first female Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And she's presently still the MP for her seat. She won her seat in Siparia in the 2015 general election, and of course she's currently the leader of the opposition. So I just had to make mention of Kamla Prasad Bisesa because she's a woman that I have a lot of respect for. I love her strength. I love her no-nonsense approach to politics. And, she has taken a lot of beatings for some of the decisions that she had to make. But as a leader, sometimes, yes, a collaborative approach is needed. But then, when you're in leadership position, the buck stops with you. And over her tenure as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, there were some decisions and some calls that she might have made that she may not have been liked for, but doing the right thing really don't bring you a lot of friends, but it's the only way to go, just doing something just because it is the right thing to do, not because you'll be popular, not because you'll be famous, not because it will make you rich or have a lot of friends or associate, but just because in your call, from a leadership perspective, that was the right decision to make. And she made them fearlessly, and she just basically did what had to be done, and I love and respect her for that. Margaret Hilda Thatcher, another of my favorite female leader. She's she has been deceased. I think she died in 2013. Former British stateswoman and politician who was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1979 to 1990. a very long period to lead this great nation as a woman, and as women struggling to find our way in this political arena that is dominated by the males, and sometimes we think that there's no space there for us. And no, for these women who have had these top jobs as leaders of these great nations, it could not have been an easy journey. And sometimes we just need to go and research how they did it, how they led, and try to see what we can take from them to strengthen and empower ourselves here regionally or elsewhere, to ensure that whatever dreams and ambition, whatever calling that we think we have innately, that we pursue them fearlessly, no matter the challenges, the fights, the struggles that come, that we press on, because others before us have done it and they did a great job. They must have gone through almost everything that some of us are going through presently, and the struggles that we face. But we need to find whatever mechanism they use to endure and to continue and have a successful political career. So this Iron Lady, I have a lot of respect for her. She led the United Kingdom from 1979 to 1990, and she was the leader of the Conservative Party from 1975 to 1990. And of course, as a woman, she was the longest serving British PM of the 20th century, and is currently the only woman to have held that office. Of course, she was nicknamed, as we mentioned before, the Iron Lady, because of her uncompromising politics and leadership style. And as Prime Minister, she implemented policies that have today become known as Thatcherism. Thatcherism. So you would have made a great mark when your policies that you would have brought to bear have now taken on a study all by themselves. And as most females coming into the political arena, I think this is one lady that we should research, and we should try to model and adopt some of her approach to how she led her political life. Not just in leadership position, we have persons who have, whether through government agencies or through the judiciary or and the legislative arm, have endured great successes in politics over the years. So we can't go through all, because we really have to get into more dialogue as to how effective electoral gender quota is in correcting this disparity or the imbalance in the amount of men to women in parliaments and houses of representatives right across the globe. So why the continuous discussion and debate on electoral gender quota, though after we have just mentioned all these great and powerful women who have served in governments globally and regionally and have made enormous contribution to their respective countries, both socially and economically. The reality is that though women have made a breakthrough in this male-dominated arena, our space, that is, there is still less than 1 in 5 parliamentarians across the world who are women. So in an aim to narrow this wide gap, this principle or practice has come on board that to correct this imbalance that we should use a quota system, whether it's going to be maintained through legislation or a voluntary system. It is thought of as one of the most effective mechanisms to get more women in the political arena and in political representation. And it is also seen as a mechanism of fast-tracking women's participation in politics to produce equality of results. So it is thought that with having a quota, whether it's going to be legislated or it's going to be a voluntary mechanism, that if you use gender quota to get more women into politics, you would have more equality in the political decisions, or the decisions, those critical or strategic decisions that are made at the top tier. You will have a more balanced result, and you will have, a better management, better governance, and control of your society. A society will be run in a more equitable and balanced way. So electoral gender quota is seen as a mechanism to correct not just bringing more women in, but it also should improve the quality of the decisions that are made, that they will work for the betterment of all at all levels of society. This has been a controversial issue, and it has been criticized and a lot of different sides. It's opposed by some, as it is seen as discriminatory towards men and will undermine the objective and equitable position of parliamentarian in how they're selected. That, if we have persons going into political representation and occupying this space just based on gender and not on merit, that we will probably not garner the best qualified or quality people who will become legislator and be decision makers for respective countries. So it is thought that it in itself, setting a quota to say you need X amount of men in X amount of women in parliament, just based on gender requirement, that practice in itself is discriminatory towards male. And I agree here that society, we need to ensure that other concerns, other challenges at play that over time had resulted in the marginalization and discrimination against women and gender bias geared towards women, that those are corrected right across the board, and that if those are corrected and they're equal, we have a system where equal opportunity exists for all to come in based on merit alone, not on gender, not because we're I guess if we correct this whole culture of thinking a man is naturally born to lead or should be the leader, or we have to maintain a patriarchal system or society for the best interests of all, that men are automatically seen as better leaders just because of their gender or biological makeup. If we just leave a fair, open system for the better person, whether that person be male, whether that person be female, that is the person who will go forward And if doing that result in more men being pushed forward, so be it, because we're looking on the qualification, the experience, and who will naturally serve the best interest, especially when you're going into politics, who will serve the best interest of the people, the country, and society on a whole. So if we just balance the playing field without any applied systems or any organized or created system, just leave everything to play out naturally and let the better person, whether man or woman, female, male, just put themselves forward and let the electorate, let democracy, let just plain straight democracy play its part. Then we would not have to be talking about the implementation of electoral quota to balance or to correct a gender bias or the imbalance in our political arena. So that's an argument, and I do agree that electoral quota, an electoral quota gender does preach discrimination. It does scream discrimination, and that in itself is creating a problem for the problem that you're trying to solve. And I don't think setting a quota that you must have X amount of women in politics just because they're women is the right way to correct this problem. I think there are other issues, there are other societal issues that plagues our society over the years that have resulted in the marginalization and discrimination against women. If we try to correct those right across the board, then the amount of women, the balance of women and men in politics will play itself out. So that's my little piece there. As we go forward, my personal views will come out. Presently, the most notable systems, it is thought of in the study of electoral gender quota that it is said to be the most notable system used to balance or to maintain a gender balance globally. And some of the systems that comes with it are some approaches how you can get this quota, this gender quota in effect, is that you can have reserved seats. You can do it through legislation, or you can do it through a voluntary political party quota. So you can say you're reserving, if you have 63 seats, like we do here in Jamaica, you can just automatically say you're reserving 20 or 25 of those seats for women, and those 25 seats have to be filled by females, even if they're not the most qualified females. You can do it through legislation, of course, or you can do it through a voluntary said quota. Now, how the success or lack thereof of gender quotas, or how successful or lack thereof of gender quotas in correcting gender bias in the political arena the success of it can be or lack of it can be influenced by your cultural attitudes and acceptance, your political culture in itself. There are certain constituencies, like here in Jamaica, that it's not really practical or easy for a woman to go into those constituency and garner much support or success. It really will require a man, and not any man either, I will tell you that, a certain type of man to really go in and to build that rapport with the people and to get things done, to relate to them based on the culture of the constituency, the accepted culture of the constituency. So political culture and constituency culture will play a role. And of course, the nature of our parliamentary environment, you would have seen even in the last Senate, where we have a particular senator, A.J. Nicholson, who tend to find pleasure in picking on the women, and most times his line of arguments and his utterances were disrespectful and degrading towards women in the Senate, and of course in general, because if you diss one woman, of course you would have disrespected all women. And of course, what can determine from this theoretical, of course, as I mentioned before, I don't support it, but from a theoretical perspective, they're saying that also what will determine the success or lack thereof of having this gender bias being corrected by an electoral gender quota is the type of system that you will adopt. So for a balanced and successful running of any government, women's empowerment and their full participation on the basis of equality in all spheres of society, including decisions that are made at the highest level of society, is paramount. But do you really need to have elected women to ensure that they participate in the decision level at the highest level of society? Because I think there are other ways to get the views and the participation of women at the highest decision-making level of society outside of them becoming political representative. Yes, a political representative is also a legislator, but what if, as we see now, where in Jamaica political culture, I think it's about 1/5 of our women are in enjoy a successful political career and have been elected members of parliament or senators. So presently we don't have an effective quota system, gender quota system, and of course legislation has to be passed. Critical decisions will have to be made, and we have this imbalance. I'm positive there are other means and systems that can be put in place to ensure that the voice of our women who are qualified to speak on the different matters that come to the table, that those voices will still be heard and those concerns will still be included, and dialogue will still be had with women qualified to speak on whatever issue at play without them being elected representative. All right, so we'll see that the women have become far more active and influential in politics across the globe in recent times. There still remain that significant underrepresentation from our females in the political decision making and the leadership roles at our level. And it is said here, based on a survey done October 2013, it was recorded that women occupy 1/5, and this is globally, 1/5 of all seats in the national legislatures worldwide. And of course, that has been a global concern for quite a while now globally, and we would see where locally there have been some very vibrant discussion taking place even as recent as in our last election here that we had on February 2016, where we'll get into those in a little while. So why quotas? Why it is thought that if we legislate or implement a quota system that will determine or will improve or will correct this marginalization or exclusion of women, the amount of women we see surfacing in politics. That why is it thought that a quota system will correct that? Or what are a quota system really? We have been talking about this, but we have not really defined for this topic what, when we mention a quota in this regard, what are we really talking about? So what are quotas? And quotas are really a form of affirmative action or equal opportunity measure designed to address the slow pace of change in the participation of women and minority groups in areas of society where they are historically are underrepresented, whether it's in employment, in education, and of course, as is the topic today, in our political institutions. Quotas generally involved setting a certain number or percentage of places to be occupied by the underrepresented group. And over the past 2 decades or so, quotas have been increasingly used in countries right across the world as a tool for advancing the political participation of women. So what this quota system does is that it places the burden of recruitment not on the individual woman applying for a certain post, but on those who control the recruitment process. And of course, the core idea behind this system is to recruit women into political positions and to ensure that women are not only over a period of time seen just a token of women, as is seen globally now, enjoying a successful political career. Of course, a lot of research have been done on the practicality and effectiveness of electoral gender quota, and of course the debates actually are ongoing as we speak. And some concerns raised are that they are unnecessary and discriminatory, and of course they distort the democratic process. And this is a view that I personally hold, that it's unnecessary. If we over time had worked harder at correcting the systems, the different systems at play that have helped to marginalize women based on maybe their biological makeup, maybe from an ideological perspective, maybe just from a cultural perspective where you think, culturally a woman is to bear children and take care of the home. From a cultural perspective where even here in Jamaica, the patriarchal culture, where the male dominance culture still holds true. It is thought that men are supposed to occupy the highest office, or when critical decisions are supposed to be made, that final decisions for it to be prudent, for it to be workable, for the best results to be had, it really has to have the last say by a male. And as a young person entering the political arena, I've had my personal experience where just because you're a woman, you can't have the last say in the meeting. Sometimes you can't have a say, even though you are in your respective leadership role, as in your constituency. There are issues there that, as the MP caretaker, you know them best. To move the constituency forward, you would have identified what challenges, what are there, what hurdles you need to overcome, and you would, with dialogue, yes, I am for collaborative discussion and dialogue in all arenas and spheres of life. You can't have this, this autocratic, what I say go. For the best decisions to be made, you need to hear other person's views and opinion, especially when the decision really doesn't affect you solely, but they are the experience where if you're a woman, know your place, because this is a man's world. And if we had done more, women have come a far way, I can tell you that. We really have evolved and emerged from where these concerns were more of a crisis. And we have seen where we are holding our own in society. But those culture, ideology, whatever systems, discriminatory systems that have been at play over many decades, they still exist. And they won't be corrected by implementing an electoral gender quota. The problems will continue. The different discriminatory and gender bias in other spheres of life, because other women in the general workplace are being discriminated against. In general society, it still exists. So it's a bigger problem. If we fix the bigger problem in a more fundamental way, in how men treat women, in how men try to collaborate, see the relationship in the business arena and even in your personal relationship in a more collaborative way, and not from a male domineering perspective, I can tell you that today we would not be having a discussion about electoral gender quota to correct this problem, this crisis that we see now, where it is very hard and difficult for a woman to enjoy a successful political career. She has to go beyond and above her normal self to ensure that all the challenges that will play themselves out, and I will tell you that over 50% of those challenges will come just because she's a woman. She will have to have that inner strength and determination to get over that hurdle and to get going and to keep going, because I will tell you, it is not an easy road, as Budger say. Many see the glamour and the glitter and they think a better rose, but it is not for a woman in to enjoy success in the political arena here in Jamaica. So I totally am in agreement that yes, we need more women, but the way about it is not to give a quota. Women must get there. We have the merit. We can get there on merit. We don't need people to serve for us, to say set a quota to get them in. To me, it's demeaning. It's disrespectful. We can get there. When you look in the universities, in the corporate spaces, the women are making the big decisions. We can get there on merit. Just leave the space and opportunity open, and we will get there. Remove the barriers, the obvious and the hidden barriers. If we remove them at all spheres of society, women will evolve and emerge in greater numbers in our parliamentary spaces. We don't need to be quoted. That is my view. It may, from a theoretical perspective, you're seeing where, as you go along, you'll see where it has documented advantages. But from my personal perspective, I think if we spend time to remove those barriers that are out there to keep women in their places, that you will see more women finding more prominence in our parliamentary arenas. Of course, some people see quotas as having limitations placed on the advancement of women, or question their legitimacy of women's involvement in politics. As I was saying, it to me it's demeaning that I can only get there if you set a quota for me to get there. What if I don't make it in the first 25 that you set? If you're going to do it limitations of seat or set seat, what if all the qualified women who are best suited to represent politically don't make it in that 25, set 25? You would have limit her advancement and her passion and her ambition to enter the political arena. Because of course, after the first 25 get in, that is closed. What about the others that have a legitimate reason and purpose and qualification and experience, and just really would have been the best person for the job? What about those that don't make it into the set quota? So, the quota system, that's another limitation to it, and what I think just make it so impractical. Others argue that these quotas are unnecessary, as gender bias, marginalization, discrimination, and gender barriers, as I just mentioned, still exist today. And because we still, basically, there's a vibrant and active patriarchal society at reign. So without these interventions, the women's place, so persons are saying who support electoral gender quota, they're saying that gender bias still exists, marginalization of women and discrimination against women and barriers are still set in place, because believe it or not, this is still a man's world. So the only way we can try to basically facilitate or accommodate a few women to creep in is if we set a little limit and create a little space for you to come in, to get in a few of you. So based on that a very, very vibrant and active patriarchal society still exists and may exist for another century, they are saying to hear the voices of women and to get them to be a part of the senior decision making, and give them some strategic roles and responsibilities in society to balance out the thing. This is the best way if we legislate it, or if we implement this thing voluntary and it is nationally accepted that we need this amount of women, because the barriers exist, there's no other way that the women will get in easily or have easy access to the political arena unless they're facilitated through a set quota system. And sometimes we put ourselves in this position, because I have seen where men over the years have ensured that they look out for their brothers, not biological brothers, but they empower each other, they defend each other, they protect each other, they bond with each other. But for some reason, when a sister gets through the gate, when a sister, not a biological sister, when another female gets through the gate and have made something of herself and have opened up the door, as soon as she gets in, for some reason she tries to close the door behind her and basically leave everybody else out. So I think women, if we start to empower each other, and when one of us make it through we create space and opportunities like the men do for each other, we would find that we have more women occupying more powerful positions in parliament. So women, we have to accept some of the responsibilities, some of the blame as to why we still are considered a minority group and a marginalized set, because we don't protect, we don't defend, we don't support, we don't create opportunities for each other the way the men do. Trust me, the men find creative ways to empower each other, to ensure that success is shared amongst themselves. Women, I can tell you from personal experience, women don't do that. Women go, you see a sister break through, and as soon as she goes through the door, she closes it because she wants nobody else to enjoy that space, to enjoy a similar success. We don't empower each other, and we are the reason why it has taken so long for us to get over this hurdle of gender discrimination and gender marginalization. I want to see more women forming different society groups that are there to empower women. And when you get a breakthrough and you're in a system, you go and you look and you see how this system can work for other females, and you use your time and energy there to create space that will pull other females through the door, and not just see it as, okay, I get there so I can hype and show off and, behave as if I am better than somebody else, and create a lot of, animosity and hatred and just beat down another sister. Because even in the corporate spaces, in the corporate environment, I can tell you firsthand, because I've experienced it, where we don't think we can share success. We don't think that we can empower each other and move ahead together. We just think that when we get there, nobody else should follow. So women, we need to look into ourselves and see how we can help each other to rise and push forward, because that is one of the approaches that the men use to ensure that it doesn't matter how qualified we are more than them, they are the ones that still maintain the top job. And even if you and a male have similar qualifications and employed to do similar roles and have similar responsibilities, most times they're higher paid. Women, let us check ourselves. Let us see how we have helped to keep our gender struggling, marginalized, discriminated against. Let us find ways and means to empower each other, to bond more. I can tell you that if we had women looking out for more women, supporting more women in a more fundamental way, we would not be here talking about gender quota as a means of having more women coming into the political arena. All right. So we're going to look on gender. This topic, I can probably split it and get back to it, another part of it next week, because it is such a wide topic, and it is really, really a critical topic for discussion. It has to be discussed. It has to be resolved. But we time is winding down. The show is supposed to be for an hour and a half. So we just basically look at the some of the concerns here, and some calls for gender quota here in Jamaica. And as I tell you, that to me, I don't think that is the way to correct the problem. But I'm here to discuss this topic in a very broad perspective. So you would have seen former Senator Imani Duncan Price in her call for gender equality in political leadership under her theme Inspiring Change. And of course, she made an appeal for support for women in leadership, and stated that although Jamaica has a female prime minister, we have a high percentage of women in our and we have a high percentage of women. Quota given is 62% to 38% of men, 62% of women to 38% of men, and in our universities, and 55% of graduates in the hard vocational training program in 2012 were women, and women are certainly leading at other arms of government. You would have seen that our DPP is a woman. In our judicial system, we have another woman there occupying the top job. There are women in a lot of influential and powerful position, but yet still we are seeing where a woman is twice likely to be unemployed, or if they do get employment, they are employed in the lower paying jobs compared to men. And she quoted statistics, from a 2010 IDB survey, which revealed that on average, women in Jamaica at all levels earn approximately 12.5% of what the male would have earned. And former Senator Duncan stated that reports from the Electoral Office of Jamaica is that of the 835 persons elected to Parliament in the last 70 years, only 67 have been females, a mere 8%, according to current data for 2014. There's a slight increase to 12.7% of women as members of Parliament. 20% of the cabinet are women, and 28.6% of the Senate comprises of women. And of course, the highest level of women as members of Parliament was 15%, and that was in 1997. And of course, you would have seen in the Gleaner right after election, in a report on February 29, 2016, where the Organization of American States, the OAS, having completed their third mission to observe general election in Jamaica, they have reiterated their concerns about the gender imbalance that pervade Jamaica's political system. And in its preliminary report, on Jamaica's 17th general election, the Electoral Observation Mission, that's the EOM of the Organization of the American States, has recommended that affirmative action has to be taken to help increase the participation of women in the electoral process. And the EOM noted that despite the growing number of Jamaican women in the decision-making position and their presence in most areas of electoral campaign, women continue to be underrepresented in actual nominations for electoral contest and in their election to the House of Representatives. And of course, of the 152 candidates contested the 2016 elections, that is on both sides, 26 candidates, or 17.1%, were women, and only 11 women, or 17.5%, were elected to the House. So the Organization of American States is calling for more affirmative action to be put in place. I guess they're supporting the electoral gender quota as one of those affirmative action to get more women to participate in our electoral processes. So, and also you would have seen where one of our university lecturer, Dr. Dunn, on March 14 in the Observer, where she pledged for parties and head of institution to renew. She has renewed her calls, that is, for the introduction of gender quotas for parliament and major government boards and committees. And you would have seen where that call was made recently, where we had that health crisis and they were trying to reorganize the board, and persons were coming forward to say if we had a more balanced makeup or structure of the board, that maybe more quality decisions would have been made, that would have been really critical in improving the plaguing health care system. Dr. Dunn said Jamaica has failed to implement a system that encourages women to enter representational politics, thus failing to meet the minimum 30% agreed to as a part of the 1984 ratification of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Dr. Dunn further states that she's convinced that we need to have quotas in parliaments as well as boards and committees. She noted that the research and advocacy of the 51% Coalition, the Jamaican Women Political Caucus, and other groups have produced evidence that support a need for these quotas as special temporary measures to make our democratic institutions and processes much more participatory and equitable. And she reasoned that failure to change the current male-dominated political culture has also contributed negatively to our political trend. So we see where Dr. Dunn is one supporter of the gender quota. As you know, my personal views on that, but we have to look on it objectively, and everybody's opinion has to be given some credence. We will be wrapping up, and we will just look quickly at some of the factors that Ingrid Moses Scott life basically attributed to the slow growth of women's participation in politics, and some of what contributes to it based on Ingrid Moses Scott life. She says political participation, where a large percentage of the political parties are controlled by men exclusively, and women's role are primarily seen as, they're just tools for mobilizing votes from the male populace, because you know that females, we have a higher percentage amongst females and it's quite ironic because we have a higher percentage of females that vote, but yet still we have a very low percentage of females in the political representative arena. Miss Moses Cutlife stated that when women rise to the helm of political parties, it becomes a clear and popular view and concern as who will be better suited and qualified to hold the controlling position if the party must emerge victoriously. So it is a reality that the political parties here in Jamaica, that they are male, they're controlled by males exclusively, even though we have had up to recent time in the last election we had a female prime minister, but I think most of the persons who were making the decisions for her or on her behalf were still males. So it is a fact here that the parties are controlled by men almost exclusively, and that women basically serve more mediocre role. Mrs. Moses Cutlife also look at the ideological factors where it's a patriarchy system of a male-dominated society and structure, and the stereotypes of a woman's place being in the home still continue to mar the level of women's political participation globally and regionally. And oftentimes women have to be extremely thick-skinned to venture into the political arena, because before she even step out and start her race, of course the negative arguments are coming that she's entering into a field that she won't be able to manage. She's a woman, her safety is raised, or how her family will be taken care of. All of these stereotypes or stereotypical arguments will be coming, and that she's going into a field that is really not suited for a woman. It's supposed to be a man out there underground. And of course, in our political culture and system, where it's very aggressive, it's very hostile, and it's almost like a life and death situation when they're out there on the ground campaigning and organizing. And it have been there. I'm there right now. It is a very rough role, and I have to learn to thicken up the skin a bit, and of course to become more. You have to be a little rough around the edges when it's called for. And another thing here is that, as a woman, we are more nurturing. We are less domineering to some extent, and we try to be more participatory and collaborative in how we make the decision. But sometimes, and that is the right way, I think, to lead, to be inclusive. But sometimes when you're nice, people think you're stupid. When you're doing the right things, you tend to get beaten down for doing the right thing. And sometimes when you want to change, especially if you come in and you want to change this whole hostile and aggressive and very corrupt political culture that we enjoy here, sometimes you will not be everybody's best friend, and systems will be put in place to remove you, because the status quo that keeps the men in their dominant roles, that status quo has to be maintained. And of course, if you're coming in there to change the way that things are done, the culture that is set, of course, these barriers will be put up against you, and systems will be placed against you to keep you in your place. And that is a reality. Mrs. Moses Cutlife also looked on the socio-cultural factors that predetermine social roles assigned to women, and how it complicates and limit the time women can dedicate and participate in politics, and how challenging it can be in trying to balance the dual roles as homemakers and public and enjoy a successful public life as a political representative. And oftentimes our role is compounded by the constant negative images and views of inferiority to that of our male counterparts, and this makes women sometimes reluctant to enter in the political arena. And of course, she looked on the economic factors, which play a significant role and twist the political parties now, where more and more money is needed to participate in politics. And oftentimes women who have the drive, the determination, the people skill, the dedication, and I can tell you, it takes, especially as a caretaker for a seat in Westmoreland, if you're not prepared to go above and beyond, and to push yourself and to remain dedicated amidst the challenges and the struggles that come, you won't make it. You will not last a week. So women naturally tend to we don't give up easily. We push on, we fight, and we just keep going. because we love to see things come to fruition, and we tend to want to fight to the end. So women with those qualities, very great qualities, caring, nurturing, compassionate qualities that are suited to represent people and to take care of people how they're supposed to be taken care of and represented. Sometimes economic factors are create really deterrence to women pushing forward, because they're not a part of certain groups or circles to garner the much needed financial contributions that you must have to really take you to the finish line, or at least to get you started. And this is really a problem, an hindrance really for women getting into politics and making a success of it regionally and globally. And sometimes, as women, a lot of us will not compromise at all for anything at all. We just want to go about getting things done in the right and proper way. We tend to be game changers. We tend to want to see things evolve from one level to another, and not just remain in dormant and stagnant, and every year in, year out we're complaining about the same social and economic problems. We come in with on the premise of wanting better, and we want to go about it the right and proper way, not to further corrupt or pervert the system. So you'll see that it will be a challenge in getting funding, and that is one of the reasons why a lot of the women who have enjoyed political success over the years, you'll see that they have strong family ties in politics, whether it's a husband, whether it's a father, whether it was a brother, but they had somebody in place there who made it easy for them to transition, and who can give them the kind of moral and financial support and any other support that they need to get them elevated and integrated in the political arena. So research will show you that a lot of these women who made politics a success, really had some support, whether it was a husband who was a prime minister before, a dad who was a premier or a president before, or some family member there, or outside of that, they really have some strong support system elsewhere that really push the network to get them rooted in. All right, so wrapping up, despite the challenges in the 21st century, women, we are emerging in larger numbers and holding prominence in government, and eradicating slow but surely, we are eradicating many of the traditional stereotypes that has kept us from advancing politically. And of course, it is very evident that at the tertiary level, tertiary education level, that females have been far surpassing their male counterparts. And with this emergence of females educating themselves, empowering themselves, really going out there in the corporate world and pulling down some good bucks, and building financial stability and empowering and being great contributors to society in whatever space they occupy. You will see that over time it won't be a radical swing, but incrementally, slowly, little by little, you will see more women coming into the political arena and taking up some form of prominence. And little by little, we will eliminate or reduce the different, whether biological, ideological, societal or economical factors or stereotypes that exist, that have kept women in their places and create fear of them going out there and pushing themselves forward into the political landscape, you will see that happening at all levels, at different levels in our governments, both regionally and globally. But women, please let us develop a culture of helping each other. Pull a sister with you. Let us create different societies. Men have their different groups that have lasted for decades, that they use to empower and bond and support each other, create employment for each other. Women, if we don't start to do take similar approaches, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, we'll be sitting here talking about how marginalized we are. Even though we're pushing and making the sacrifice to elevate ourselves, there still will exist those systems, because if there's really power in numbers. If one woman go out there and try to break the system, it is going to be 1,000,000 times harder than if a group of women strategically take on the system and try to break it. Women, let us find ways and means. Stop the bad mind. Stop the hating on other women. Stop the malicious attack on other women. Stop the fighting and creating barriers and hindrance for other women to evolve and emerge. And let us open up the door and create spaces for a sister to pull another sister along. Let us develop that kind of culture. And let us bond more. Let us be our sister's keeper. And I tell you, if we go about this in a strategic and fundamental way, you will see how powerful we are already powerful, but it will be recognized in a more fundamental way and a more impactful way. And we will hold our space in society based on merit, and that we deserve to be here because we have worked our way, we are qualified, we're experienced, and we have earned our place here. And we were not propelled in a position based on because we're women. That is not enough, that you get a position just because you're a woman. I do not support that. It's the better person, whether you're a man or a woman, that needs to go forward. But it is evident that there are a lot of qualified women out there that still cannot evolve because the systems and the barriers are set against her just because she's a woman. So let us work together to open up and create the space and break the barriers and the systems together as women. Enjoy your weekend. Have a holy Sabbath. I don't know why I'm going back to Easter. I must miss the bun and cheese. But have a holy Sabbath and enjoy your weekend. And I will see you. I'll be here again next week with another controversial topic. Until then, peace and love. See you next week. Bye-bye.